here it is. Now, if you haven't been up to date on some of the latest science news, basically there's this company out there who has said that they have created a dire wolf. I'll put a link to their announcement video in the description. The issue that a lot of people are having with the dire wolf is that they're saying it's not a real dire wolf. And I totally understand where they're coming from. They basically just took a gray wolf, genetically modified it, and turned it into a dire wolf. So it's not so much an actual dire wolf as it is just a genetically engineered gray wolf. So I kind of want to make a distinction between the natural dire wolf that went extinct tens of thousands of years ago and the new dire wolf, which I'll just be referring to as a synthetic dire wolf, because ultimately, here's my side of the argument. I think it is actually a dire wolf. Genetically, it's just a modified gray wolf. But I think it can still count as a dire wolf. So I'm going to be calling the new guy the synthetic dire wolf, and the guy that's been extinct for a really long time a natural dire wolf. So anyway, this company came out and said that they made a dire wolf. And a lot of people are saying that that's not the case. And I think that that is correct. Scientifically speaking, the way that we classify animals these days is basically by genetics. And so, genetically speaking, yeah, this is just a modified gray wolf. And no, this isn't a dire wolf. Taxonomically, it is not a dire wolf. But here's the other side of the argument. If it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's a duck. You know, if this thing looks like a dire wolf and behaves like a dire wolf, then I think for all intents and purposes, we can just say it's a dire wolf. It's a different dire wolf than the original, and that's why I'm saying synthetic dire wolf versus natural dire wolf, because this is basically a new species that we invented in the lab by modifying a gray wolf. We've made a new species of wolf that is the modern dire wolf, the synthetic dire wolf. Here's the problem. It doesn't really matter what it is, because it's kind of just useless. There's no ecosystem that this guy would fit in the modern world, because when the dire wolf went extinct, the ecosystem as a whole changed and evolved to the point where there wasn't need for a dire wolf anymore. So us making a synthetic dire wolf is kind of pointless. We can't really release it into the wild. There's nothing big enough in the wild to support the feeding habits of a wolf this big. You know, so it really is kind of pointless to have made this. It's just cool science that we can show off and say, look at this neat thing that we did, which it is neat. It's pretty cool. Hey, we made a fake dire wolf. That's an impressive thing that science can do. And I think that definitely this company is trying to do impressive things to keep their investors interested and throwing money at them. So that's why they kind of have to do this cool science instead of actually helpful science. We're basically just doing Jurassic Park. Because, like I said, there's no ecological niche for this thing. There's no purpose for it in the modern world, in any modern ecosystem. If anything, it would just disrupt ecosystems. It's kind of pointless to have made it. It's cool, but we're just doing Jurassic Park. I think it would be really cool to have a little prehistoric section in the zoo where it's like, hey, look at these dire wolves. You know, I think that there is a place for these guys in modern society, you know, as an attraction, you know, as something cool for people to come look at. But there's not really a place for them in nature. So that's why it's kind of like, why bother? You know, we're literally just doing Jurassic Park at this point. We were so focused on if we could. We didn't stop. I've actually never seen the original Jurassic Park movies. I like Jeff Goldblum. Big fan of Jeff Goldblum. The problem with bringing back a lot of these extinct species is that, you know, a species could go extinct for a number of reasons. One of those reasons could be that there just was not a spot for them in the ecosystem anymore. So they went extinct. And in that case, there's no spot for them in any modern ecosystem, so we can't really reintroduce them into the wild. It doesn't really serve that much of a practical purpose, other than just, here's a cool thing that we can do. Anyway, I think that there is some value from this scientifically. I think that we can use these techniques elsewhere to better perfect genetic engineering, or even to reintroduce recently extinct species. The southern white rhino, I think, is still like facing extinction. Like, I think there's one left right now. And so this is obviously something that we can use to help that effort. So I think that there is value for this down the road, but I think that this whole thing is just kind of like, oh hey, here's a cool science thing that we can do. So anyway, I think we can call these things direwolves. Synthetic direwolves. Because they're not genetically the same as natural direwolves, but they do still look and act like a direwolf. So I think they are a direwolf. They're just a new breed. I think one of the important things to remember is that taxonomy is weird. And even in the natural world, there are things like convergent evolution, where two animals will kind of evolve the same way, despite the fact that they're not even that closely related. Based on our current system of animal classification, chickens are dinosaurs. You get to a point where you're like, all right, here's the branch that anything that evolves off of this is considered a dinosaur. And so you've got all these other branches coming down, all these other animals, and one of those branches eventually led to chickens. So chickens are a subset of dinosaur. That's what science says. That's true. Taxonomy is weird. It gets kind of messy. And I think our current system is great. It's a lot better than what we had in the past, because in the past we would basically just be like, these animals look kind of the same, so they're probably the same. Whales and fish, probably the same. They both have fins, so, And obviously, we now know that that system doesn't work. It's not very accurate, So like I said, what we have as a modern system is great, but again, the way that that works, chickens are dinosaurs. So if you want to say these things aren't direwolves, I think that's fine. I think that's true. I think that they're a different breed of direwolves. But if you want to say, based on our current classification system of animals, these aren't direwolves, then you also have to say chickens are dinosaurs. If you enjoyed this video, make sure that you like and subscribe. It really helps me out. And also, leave a comment saying, what do you think? Are these things direwolves? Are they not? Is synthetic direwolves a good term? Is this something completely different? Are we entering a new age of synthetic animals that we create in a lab? I don't know. I think this research is going to eventually lead to some really cool things. Yeah. Tune in next time when we talk about how elephants are actually sharks. No, that's stupid. That's a dumb joke.